Yeah, it's monophonic, so if you want to try to get a chord out of it, you have to like balance between two notes, like
Whoa.
because it keeps wanting to seesaw.
And how are you balancing?
Muting the one
I
that's
see.
dominant.
Yeah.
Whoa. Can you play 3 notes?
No.
Whoa.
After a while, it'll just favor one.
And that's just the front pickup that's monophonic?
Piezo.
Oh.
That's just feeding that.
I mean, yeah. Because there's like some lovely like I don't know. There's some whooshy stuff on top of it or something. Like in the
I think it's from when the
what
it's when
is
you
that?
get the string to rub against the fretboard. I think
that top
like,
end kind of stuff. Yeah.
The first thing guitarists do when they pick this up is they want to,
right,
do the vibrato like that, but it doesn't. There's nothing to grip onto like that. But you start.
Oh, so
that,
yeah,
and then
okay.
you get more of that kind of flautist breath.
Right. Yes, that's
flautist
what it is.
Breath.
That's what it does. It feels like a flute.
I woke up this morning with flautist breath.
How are you getting the harmonic there?
It's just a mode on the sustainer.
What do all the switches do?
That's on and off. That's harmonic mode or fundamental mode. And this is a pickup selector, but I never use. This is the magnetic pickup.
Is the sustainer always on when you're playing it?
No. I mean, it sounds great. Like. There's so many sounds out of this thing.
How long have you had it?
5 years or something like that.
5 years.
Yeah.
And so Duncan Price made it?
Yeah. So Duncan made it. He was working on. He was doing. Are we going?
We're going.
He was doing fretless stuff. He was doing fretless stuff with a Sustainiac. I can't remember how close it was to an instrument that I had gotten from Ruben in terms of baritone, the combination of baritone and a piezo pickup, and that might have been it. But I was using it with an EBow all the time to get stuff on recordings, but it's very limiting. You've only got one string at a time with that, and like to switch to another string is, I don't know, I'm sure there's people out there that can do it. So I came across Duncan. He was building something pretty similar, and I just said, could you put a guitar together with with these things, and that was this one. And I think it was, I think other than the sort of experimental guitar that he has still, this is the first one of these that he built. He's made a few more, and most of them I think have gone to people that have gone out on the road with groups that I've produced, and there's a lot of this on those records, and there's just no other way to make that sound.
Yeah.
So they're out there. There's more out there.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that we can kind of like nail it a little bit. There's a couple things that are still a little squirrely about it.
What's squirrely?
Well, each one that he's made sounds different, does a different thing, responds differently. So trying to figure that out. And part of that is like, when you're working on a song and you sit down to pick up where you left off, and rather than feeling like you've gotten closer, you just feel like you've found new forks in the road, and you've got more choices, and you're just like, the more you work on it, the further away from the end you feel. I think there's a little of that going on, and he's way more familiar with what's under the hood of this than I am. I'm just more of a kind of like, in the field.
Yeah.
Beta testing.
Field tester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something about this one that that he's not happy with? Because
we're using the Sustainiac pickup in this one, which is like you can buy that. That's been around for like 30 years. or longer or something. I don't know, but he's invented his own polyphonic version of a sustainer pickup. So each string has its own independent sustainer. So that whole thing of like you've got to seesaw between notes
I see.
is not even a problem anymore. But the like how that actually relates to the way the instrument plays, like the ramp of the note, like how quickly the thing takes off. It's almost like if it's too efficient, it's not as musical,
Right.
or something. The one that he sent me with that design on it, that technology on it, we tried a bunch of other things on that instrument at the same time. I'm trying a metal fretboard and tried like independent switches for each string and stuff. And that's what I mean by like that whole fork in the road thing. I think we tried too many things
Yeah.
to be able to tell if it was an improvement or what was an improvement and what wasn't.
When you are in that space in the studio, do you like recognize it and do something about it, or do you let yourself just kind of walk down more forks?
In the studio, when
when
that
you're making 'em.
happens,
Yeah, when you're making music.
yeah, I don't know. I relate to it more in the writing. In the studio, I think, by that point, you've got a little bit of a framework to go off of if it's a song that you're working on that has some sort of a narrative to it, especially if there's lyrics, right? You could refer to the lyric and kind of say like, okay, what's the call? If we're just trying to choose between one of these 5 ideas that all seem like they would sound pretty great, is there one that feels most appropriate to something that's already fundamental about the song or the artist or like otherwise, yeah, it's like you said, it's just going to turn into this. It's an exploratory session, which is really fun, but that's not a lot of people can afford to do that anymore.
Right.
When you've got a home studio like this, I think it's part of what makes records, home studio records sound the way that they do, probably because there's a lot more of that exploration.
Yeah.
And then some of the records where people are going into a commercial studio, they come out of that feeling like, they were so uptight, or they were like, they got nervous about making a record. That probably, I would think that probably factors into it a little bit.
Yeah. Is like some of your job, actually, maybe we should get into the record. Should we just get into the record first?
Cool.
Why don't we start with Taka? Should we listen to it?
Let's
Here we
listen
go.
to it.
So sick. So awesome.
Thank you.
Blake, how do you start writing that? How does that come together?
Well, the special thing about working on music with Pino is he, as a writer, he comes in with some of these things that are just collections of 3 bass parts or 2 bass parts, like a melody and a bass line and then like a rhythm bass or chords or something. He's largely responsible for the kind of like interlocking quality of that tune, and it emanated from him. And oftentimes when it's an idea like that, my role is sort of an arranger and organizer, and where things like that can be kind of linear or stuck. Hearing a B section, is a lot easier for somebody who's just coming in fresh and stuff like that. So,
Did he come in with the B section?
I think on this tune, I can't remember if it was a separate idea, and the putting them together was sort of like a will this work kind of thing, or if he had written it where it goes into the B section like that. I know the C section was a completely different piece of music. And,
The one with all the chords.
yeah.
What do you
the
think of
same-
as the B section?
Well, the modulation from C to D, the first kind of drop.
Yeah, that like
Is-
dream thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's-
think of that as the B section.
How did you guys record it?
I made a sequenced drum part,
With what?
SP 1200,
Okay.
and which a lot of that stuff is still in there. I think Chris is playing along with it,
Cool.
which was like another. It was not the plan. We were planning on getting rid of it, but throughout the record, it ended up being kind of the way things went. We worked on it as a duo before other people could come in, and a lot of the stuff we had laid down as templates ended up, really fitting. It was hard to get rid of.
Hard to mute.
And when
Yeah.
you say sequence drum part, is that like the whole form of the song, or is it like a loop that you like playing over?
That's a good question. If I had to guess, because I don't remember specifically, but if I had to guess, it would probably be like 8 bars
Yeah.
with some variation, in there. And then we record that in, and then we loop that, as many times or whatever as the section is. And that we sort of know, I think at that point we kind of know, we have a plan of like how long, the A section is and when the B section. So we'll build a template, we'll build a map
Yeah.
that's not, because on a song like this too, I don't know if it's one beat throughout. I feel like it changes a little bit. Like I remember moving the snare drum, boom, boom, ga, boom, boom,
And
boom,
sometimes
boom,
it's on
ga,
3.
boom, boom, boom.
Exactly,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I think it used to always be boom, boom, ga, boom, 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 ga, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, ga, and have that kind of 6/8 backbeat thing. But a tune like this is really largely about how many different meters there are going on simultaneously, and like if you watch us play, each person's tapping their foot differently,
Right.
and so there's often a point in working on a song like that, at least with Pino and I, where be like, I keep hearing something here, like, yeah, and then what are you talking?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and we'll try it, and it'd be like, well, that sounds amazing. I don't know how you're counting it like that or why you're counting it like that, But
The use of space and silence and what's implied and what's stated is so masterful. In my head, when I hear music like this, I wonder how full did this thing get before stuff got peeled away? Did it feel mostly like an additive process, or was there a point where it felt far too full and then you had some sort of deconstructive process where it was trying to figure out how much you could take away to get to where you wanted to go?
Yeah. I think in the context of how maximal a lot of records can get, and I know we've all worked on those kinds of projects and know what that sounds like and feels like, and in context of that, I don't think anything on this album ever got to that place, but the process you're describing was really relevant in that we because it was just us most of the time, the layers are going on slowly. So you really get a good look at what that thing you just added, what it is taking away from, if anything. It wasn't the kind of thing where like, we put that layer down hypothetically and then moved on because somebody else had an idea as well, and that's when you come back in a couple weeks later, you're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff on here.
Yeah.
And I love that part of the process, the
Yeah.
meeting part. For me, that's like the sculpting. That's like, where the thing really starts to take
Reveal
shape.
itself.
Yeah.
So did it come together as like a live take with a band and then overdubs came after that? Is that how it came together?
So let's see. We did the bass parts together. We're both playing bass.
Which basses?
Pino is playing the melody that's panned to the left. I think we're both playing. Like, I think I'm maybe doing the high notes on that because I asked him to slap the part, which is like, I don't think he wouldn't do that for
For
just
anybody. Yeah.
Uh,
What was his response to that
he was
request?
like, okay, something like that. Okay,
Good impression.
and so those notes were not coming across really well or something like that. Like there was, it's funny because he does it now when we're like practicing the song. He does it now and it's no problem. It's just one of those things that day in the studio where it was like, well, what if you take those, do those two notes? And I got like a little bit of a nastier tone, I think, for those notes that was not helping the rest of the line. If he was to play that whole line with that tone, I think I remember something like that.
Can we hear that section just to hear those notes and the tone you're talking
Yeah,
about?
so it's right at the top.
Okay, here we go.
Sounds pretty uniform now.
He's slapping those high notes.
No. I think I'm playing the high notes and he's slapping everything else.
I see.
Oh. And are you doubling him the da-da-da? Is that what you're saying?
I'm playing the da-da-da. That's just me.
Oh, that's just
and
you.
he's
On a bass.
on bass
And
at the same time.
I see.
Which
Okay.
bass were you playing? Do you remember?
Maybe my P bass. He's
And-
playing his moon bass, I think.
And
Oh, so you guys are on the same side.
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
much are you guys how much variety is there in terms of mic and amps versus DIs and
God, honestly, I don't know, but I don't think we used a mic that much on bass.
mostly DI bass?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember how we got some of the grit. Gosh, I wish I could. I wish I knew, like, it's hard. Like, this song has 3 basses on it, and I know that they're not all the same. So there's probably the way we mixed it was like, he's got his melodic bass to the left, the sort of kind of nasty bass line part that enters on the right, but when the drums come in and the arrangement fills out a little bit, that sneaks into the center.
Yeah.
Where there is still some aspect, I think, that's happening on the right, like maybe the amp that's high passed or something we may have kept over there to just not have it feel lopsided now with the melody over here. Because the fretless guitar is pretty center, I think. And I hear now what you're talking about. There is room. We reamp the fretless
That's
at
what
the
it is.
end
Okay.
to get it. Yeah. To get like, but it's like I'm writing what's getting thrown into
Cool.
the
The
room.
room. Cool.
It's not just like, let's just get a blend and send
Okay.
it. It's just kind of, at times it's pushing into the room. And
Can we listen to that? I want to hear.
dry? A little bit of room.
And what's on the left there? What's that playing the melody on the left?
The highest?
Doubling the center melody.
Pino. Fretless Pino, right?
Well, I thought Pino's on the right.
He's
you
both.
and Pino. Okay,
Well,
so
so wait, what's on the left?
yeah,
So he's playing, Pino is playing the melody on bass
on the left.
on
Okay.
the left.
That.
Yep.
Yes. Got it. And
Us
that's you in the
together.
center.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who is our distorted friend? Who is that character that's the buzzy fly?
That's the drum. That's the drum machine.
This
That's
stuff.
That's
all-
Drum Machine?
Yeah. That's a kick.
Whoa. Whoa.
Through what?
Just like
Something.
blasting
Dude,
a
it's
preamp
like-
or something?
Just getting
I'm
crushed.
trying to. I think like that ended up being. No, it wasn't an amp. It was all plugins. It was just me like. Just being like I just was like wanted to transform it one day. I
Yeah.
think it's probably like maybe Lossy,
Nice.
maybe the lo-fi, the Avid lo-fi
Yeah, yeah.
thing. Like
On the spectrum
something like that.
of Eric Valentine, obsessive, trying every possible sound, finding the exact right tone, and moving very quickly and not being too concerned, just more concerned with capturing the idea and the performance than the tone. Where would you place yourself generally, and where would you place yourself on this project?
I would place myself closer to someone who's being mindful of trying to create sounds that are working together. You know, before we hit record, like that, there's definitely this mindfulness there. That it's really like. I feel like that's a question that's more important to ask other people that I'm working with, because the alternative that you described of like working quickly to capture the performance, it suggests that if you wait too long, that the performance will suffer, right? Which I think is true in many cases. It also could be said that the difference between playing drums with a lot of really nice compression on it, not just like slammed, but really nice compression, that can make you play
Will affect the performance.
in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's always things to consider, you know, and also like the musicians, when you know what the musicians are capable of in terms of a performance. Sometimes you're searching for a sound that will inspire them to do something that they didn't know that they could do.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious where you and Pino, if anywhere, are at odds in terms of that collaboration. Was there anything that occurred where your instincts were different and you had to find a way to navigate some middle ground, or were you pretty much aligned?
There's so much alignment on this project that the only thing that comes to mind with that is that, you know, Pino's ears and his sense of rhythm and intonation, but in particular rhythm it's so micro that he can hear something where he's like, you know, there's something a little funny about that little moment there. And at the beginning of the day or at the beginning of a project, you know, when somebody says that, it's like, right, let's dig in and let's find it. And so at the end of something, when it's a moment that you've heard at that point, you know, 500 times, and I'm just thinking like, there's nothing wrong with that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're tripping, dog.
Do you say that?
Yeah, but I know that he's right. I know that we're gonna go and we're gonna, like, you know, that if I scoot something, you know, for him, or give him a chance to like punch in on something that, you know, I thought he's never gonna beat it, you know. He can come in and have rewritten a whole bass line, a whole bass part, you know, because he'd been working with it over the weekend or thinking about it over the weekend, and I'm just thinking like, this is gonna be one of those things where, you know, we're fixing something that's not broken, and sure enough, you know, he's right. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know, he knows what he's hearing, and my ears are good, and I hearing things too that like that are specific, you know, and I'm sure he's watching me go hunting or for something. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, bro.
Yeah.
So that's our, you know, that's just us kind of, it's more about playing to each other's strengths, I think, with him. I really feel like our project is about celebrating what the other person is really good at.
Knowing that, or having had that experience of pressing back and then realizing oh, he was right. Does that affect? I mean, at this point, you guys have done so much together. Do you still push back, or are there still times when you say you're tripping, or do you guys just give each other complete space to chase whatever you're chasing?
There's complete space there, but the times where I'll push back is where I feel like it's coming from a lack of confidence, where he's put in so much time getting rid of all of the excess noises that might come through and muddy up a bass performance, and his awareness of that is hypersensitive. So when I put something in his hands, and all of that nuance and all of the finger noise on the strings and stuff is coming through, and that's part of it, there's a little angel or a devil or something on his shoulder being like, it would be just as good without that. And sometimes I'm the person who's saying, like, it wouldn't be just as good. Like those noises are beautiful and a big part of what helped place, where you are as a listener, how close you are to that sound, is being able to hear all that stuff. I think what I'm saying is that we're hyper aware of different things. And we spend a lot of time working on this record, a lot more time working on the writing than we got to on the first record, but also working on the recordings. It's
absolutely,
it's totally, it's such we're so lucky to get to spend this kind of time and energy on a project like this. Part of the reason why it sounds the way that it does is that access to studio, that access to, being able to call any musician in the world and say, do you want to come down and, we'll buy you dinner and pay you a day rate and play you something. We just want to hear, how it hits you and what you come up with. And
yeah,
it's such a dream.
Absolutely.
We're going to keep talking to Blake over on our Patreon. We're going to keep talking about his collaboration with Pino, and we're going to hear 2 more songs. It's free to join. You don't have to pay anything to come and watch the rest of the conversation. We'll see you over there.